That's a recipe for,
disaster.
well, no, for baby making. Stole your virginity, got you pregnant, and is now denying paternity. You found out she was sleeping with 4 other men.
And he pressured me to have sex with him, and I said I wasn't ready yet. Hooked up and had sex. I lost my virginity, and I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks later.
Why?
One time.
Okay.
One time.
Well, that's about all you need is one
that's
time.
One time.
Did you use protection?
No, inboxed me and her on Facebook and said, I'm not trying to start no drama. I thought I'd let you know that she had sex with 4 other guys. Yes, Your Honor.
So you don't think you're necessarily the only potential candidate?
Yes, Your Honor.
Somebody else?
I never had sex
right
with him,
after
but
he took it?
No.
So people just lying on you?
It's him lying.
I don't think he even ever got the messages.
No, not at all.
Okay, so let's fast forward to the birth.
The courtroom today feels heavier than usual, not because of noise, but because of the weight of what's at stake. Judge Lauren Lake presides with the same calm intensity that has made her courtroom a symbol of the fragile line between accusation and evidence. It is a space where emotions crack open, where family histories unravel under oath, and where the truth, whether welcomed or feared, becomes impossible to escape. On one side stands Ms. Hope Mitchell, a young mother who has come forward insisting that the man she once trusted, indeed the man she says took her virginity, is the biological father of her 2-month-old daughter. On the opposite side stands Mr. Ryan Robinson, accompanied by his fiancée, both challenging her claim. The atmosphere reflects the tension between 2 families, 2 narratives, and 2 versions of the truth colliding in front of the bench. From the moment the case is introduced, it's clear that this is more than a simple dispute over paternity. It has the complexity of a stage in a divorce case, the unpredictability found in DNA test cheating stories, and the emotional wounds often discussed in celebrate recovery testimonies. Both parties carry grievances they have rehearsed for months, maybe years, waiting for a platform where someone in authority would finally hear them. Judge Lauren Lake begins by clarifying the claims. Hope Mitchell alleges that Mr. Robinson fathered her daughter, and she recounts in her own words the complicated path that led them here. She insists she was pressured into an intimate relationship, and though it happened only once, she claims she became pregnant shortly afterward. She says she has no doubts. Mr. Robinson, however, contests nearly every part of her narrative. He introduces messages, rumors, and accusations from friends on social media, what he describes as digital warnings, suggesting she had been involved with multiple men. Whether those claims are true or exaggerations shaped by jealousy and immaturity, Judge Lake focuses on the fact that none of the accusations qualify as certified evidence. It's at this point that the courtroom begins to resemble dozens of podcast discussions on truth, law, and responsibility. The Game-Changing Attorney podcast, episodes about the relationship between law and justice, and the way modern conflicts are fought more on online platforms than in living rooms. The mother, Hope, grows visibly frustrated as the judge presses for clarity. She denies the allegations, saying the rumors were fabrications designed to distract from the real issue. She insists that the only encounter that mattered was the one she shared with Mr. Robinson. There were no other partners, no hidden relationships, no secret timeline. She believes his doubt is built entirely on jealousy, social media gossip, and the influence of others. Meanwhile, the fiancée, Ms. Hitchcock, and Hope's mother jump into the dispute with years of bitterness. Their voices rise, not about evidence but about character, dignity, and mutual dislike. Even though this is not a divorce course podcast, the case mirrors many of those episodes as Judge Lake carefully guides the courtroom back to the central issue, paternity. Every outburst makes the courtroom feel like a collision between past wounds and current accusations. It's not just about a baby, it's about pride, betrayal, and the search for truth. And this is where the adverse inference in evidence act becomes relevant. Although the show itself is not referencing formal statutory codes, the principle is familiar. When one party refuses to provide information or creates barriers, the court can sometimes interpret that resistance as a sign of weakness in their claim. Judge Lake brings this spirit into the room, reminding both sides that avoiding direct questions, shifting blame, or drowning arguments in emotional noise only leads the court to draw conclusions they may not like. The conversation shifts toward the child. Pictures are submitted comparing the baby with Mr. Robinson's other children. He argues that physical resemblance matters. Hope counters that resemblance is not proof. The judge reinforces the point. Resemblance is not science. A DNA test remains the only definitive answer, and this is exactly why the courtroom exists, to turn emotional noise into factual clarity. As Hope's mother speaks, she defends her daughter with a fierce sense of protection. She presents documents, arrest records, and timelines challenging Mr. Robinson's claims about why he wasn't present at the hospital. Her insistence transforms the narrative again, shifting the focus from the young parents to the generational wounds between families. The courtroom becomes a symbolic place where unresolved conflicts between households erupt, illustrating how paternity cases do not just involve a child. They expose everything beneath the surface. This pattern mirrors countless adoption stories' full episodes, where families wrestle with identity, belonging, and the meaning of paternal responsibility. These moments show the raw emotional landscape surrounding children who enter the world amid conflict. Judge Lauren Lake works methodically through the noise, using the practicality of law to cut through emotional fog. She distinguishes fact from storytelling, hears evidence from accusation, and repeatedly reminds each party that the focus must remain on the child, not their grievances. She asks questions that feel like they could belong in a Truth Changes Everything podcast. What efforts were actually made to see the child? What barriers were created intentionally or unintentionally? What responsibilities were avoided? What motivations are driving each person's testimony? Both sides attempt to present themselves as the more reasonable party. Mr. Robinson insists he has always wanted to be a father. He says he has cared for other children not biologically his, and that he wants to be present in the baby's life if she is his. Hope, meanwhile, paints a different picture, claiming that he chose absence, not circumstance, and that she has been carrying the full burden of parenting alone. The child support discussion begins when Hope submits a detailed account of expenses: diapers, formula, wipes, clothing, bottles, laundry detergent. Judge Lake reviews the receipts, performs calculations, and acknowledges the financial weight Hope has been carrying alone. She clarifies that if the DNA test confirms paternity, Mr. Robinson will be legally required to contribute. It echoes rulings seen at the Supreme Court level, where child support is not a matter of emotion but obligation. The structure of responsibility remains one of the clearest expressions of the concept of justice in jurisprudence, fairness built from factual determination, not personal history. This moment captures what so many people experience when facing the results of a DNA test people regret taking, the tension between wanting the truth and fearing the consequences of that truth. Because once the result is read, the excuses dissolve. The emotional fog clears. The truth either becomes liberation or burden. In either case, it becomes permanent. As the judge prepares the courtroom for the DNA results, everything becomes quieter. The arguing stops. The accusations fade into the background. All that remains is anticipation, an emotional silence that feels heavier than all the earlier shouting. The envelope enters the courtroom. Judge Lake holds it with the authority of someone who understands that a single sheet of paper has the power to restructure an entire family. Every person in the room seems to stop breathing for a moment. The truth, long delayed and heavily disputed, is finally at the door. And as Judge Lake reads the result, the courtroom sees what it always sees when scientific evidence replaces speculation: the end of doubt. The result confirms that Mr. Robinson is the biological father. The revelation carries emotional shock for both parties. The truth may not fix their relationship, it may not repair the hostility, and it may not resolve the resentment, but it reshapes their obligations, their responsibilities, and their future paths. In Judge Lake's courtroom, that is what justice looks like. Not emotional satisfaction, but factual resolution. When Judge Lake rules that Mr. Robinson must pay his share of the childcare expenses, it is not a punishment. It is the application of law, the anchoring of responsibility, the beginning of a new structure for the child's life. And as the judge asks if he may finally see his daughter, the room shifts again. It stops being a battlefield and becomes a space where something new can begin. This is the moment where law meets humanity, the place where courtroom decisions stop being episodes and start becoming lives. After the paternity ruling is made, the courtroom carries a shift that is almost physical, like a sudden release of pressure after a tightly sealed container is opened. The truth has landed, etched into the record, impossible to deny or reshape. For some, it feels like vindication. For others, an unwanted certainty. Judge Lauren Lake observes the atmosphere the way only someone with years of experience in family law can. Quietly, but sharply aware that the emotional temperature changes the direction of everything that comes next. The courtroom is transitioning from the raw intensity of accusation toward the structured clarity of legal consequence. It mirrors the transition many podcasts about law and truth describe. Initial chaos, the search for evidence, and finally the establishment of fact. What seemed like a personal feud now becomes a legal framework that binds both parties, whether they agree or not. Once the fatherhood question is settled by a scientifically grounded DNA test, the issue no longer rests on memories, rumors, or emotional stories. It rests on objective truth, something the legal system relies on far more than personal narratives. This is where the relationship between law and justice becomes most visible. Law does not repair emotional hurt. It restores order. Justice does not soothe the heart. It clarifies responsibility. Judge Lake turns the focus toward the child's future. She underscores that now, regardless of bitterness or past misunderstanding, both individuals must participate in shaping their daughter's life. Hope Mitchell is no longer presenting her case as a single mother fighting alone. She is now the mother of a child with a confirmed father. Mr. Robinson is no longer a man dodging accusations. He is now legally and morally responsible for a life he helped create. The ruling creates a moment reminiscent of episodes analyzed in the Divorce Course podcast, where guests discuss how parenthood responsibilities become non-negotiable the moment the court determines biological connection. The structure of accountability is now locked in place. The judge emphasizes that childish conflicts, social media disputes, and resentment between ex-partners cannot interfere with what the child is owed. This echoes the core of the concept of justice in jurisprudence, where fairness is defined not by personal feelings, but by structured obligation. As the courtroom processes the news, Hope's mother, who has been protective and vocal throughout the hearing, visibly relaxes. The confirmation of paternity strengthens her belief that the months of hardship, financial strain, and emotional stress were not endured without reason. Her daughter's claims have been validated, and the court has recognized the truth she insisted was there all along. On the other side, Mr. Robinson's demeanor shifts from defensive assertiveness to a more reflective seriousness. It is a moment often seen in celebrate recovery testimonies, when individuals are confronted with a truth they can no longer deny, leading to a reevaluation of their role and future actions. His fiancée, who has been supportive and combative in moments, now looks at him with a different responsibility, because now he is not just a partner defending himself. He is a confirmed father. The courtroom no longer feels like a battlefield of accusations. Instead, it becomes a space where the structure of a new reality is beginning to form. Judge Lake recognizes the tenderness of this moment, but she does not allow emotion to overshadow the next phase, implementation of the ruling. She reiterates that this child has the right to know her father, and that both parents must rise above disagreements to provide stability. As the hearing progresses, Judge Lake reviews the evidence Hope submitted regarding expenses. The breakdown of diapers, formula, clothing, wipes, and other essentials was meticulously documented. The judge acknowledges the effort and confirms the amount owed by Mr. Robinson. Though the number is small in the broader picture, less than $400, it symbolizes something larger, the beginning of shared responsibility. The judge notes that the responsibility for child support aligns with both legal precedent and principle seen even at the Supreme Court level, where the welfare of a child always outweighs the personal conflict of adults. It echoes lessons from adoption stories' full episodes, where courts repeatedly emphasize that a child's rights must remain the center of every decision. In the courtroom, this principle becomes clear. Hope is not simply seeking reimbursement. She is seeking recognition that she is not alone in raising her daughter. Mr. Robinson is not merely being ordered to pay. He is being informed of his obligations as a father. The judge shifts the tone once more, reminding both parents that the court is a place of truth, not emotional retaliation. She emphasizes that social media disputes, accusations from friends, and personal grudges must cease. The truth is established. Now the structure of parenting must begin. At this moment, the courtroom environment resembles the reflective tone often heard in the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, where experts discuss the importance of accepting legal outcomes with clarity and maturity. The judge emphasizes that responsibility cannot be conditional. It is now permanent, grounded in biological certainty. The attention shifts back to the emotional heart of the case, the child. Hope is asked whether she will allow Mr. Robinson to meet his daughter for the first time. For a moment, she hesitates, not out of spite but out of fear. The months leading up to this hearing have been filled with accusations and hostility. She has carried the emotional and physical weight of motherhood alone. The idea of allowing him into the child's life feels vulnerable. But with the judge guiding the room, Hope acknowledges that the baby deserves a relationship with her father. It is this moment where the transformation from conflict to cooperation becomes visible. Not perfect cooperation, not immediate harmony, but the initial step toward a new structure built on truth rather than doubt. This transition mirrors countless DNA test people regret taking situations where the truth disrupts previous beliefs, but also offers a path to move forward. It shows how truth changes everything, shaping new expectations and responsibilities. Judge Lake ends this portion of the hearing with clarity and authority. She ensures that both parents understand their roles and responsibilities moving forward. She advises them that future disagreements must be handled with maturity, respect, and focus on the child, not through public posts or extended family feuds. The court is not just delivering judgment. It is establishing a new relationship between two adults who must now coordinate as parents. It is a moment that captures the very essence of why family law exists, to structure the chaos that emerges when personal lives collide with legal responsibilities. When the judge steps away to meet the parties in chambers regarding visitation arrangements, the courtroom settles. The arguments have ended. The truth has been spoken. The legal consequences have been set. The emotional storm has cleared enough for a new beginning to be possible. But the session is not over. As the next case begins, another story emerges. A second family, another past, another set of unresolved questions. The courtroom fills again with new faces, new tensions, and a new search for truth. This time, it is Brittany Jackson who steps forward. Her story begins not with accusations or social media rumors, but with a lifelong question. Who is her father? She stands in the courtroom with decades of uncertainty etched across her expression. Judge Lauren Lake introduces her claim that she has always believed Mr. Hightower is her biological father, based on what her mother told her. From childhood memories to scattered moments of connection, Brittany has pieced together a narrative that shaped her identity, and now she has come to confirm it. Where the previous paternity case was filled with conflict between ex-partners, this one carries the emotional weight of a daughter seeking the truth about her origin. It carries the tone of an emotional documentary rather than a confrontation, echoing episodes from Adoption Stories' full episodes, where individuals search for missing family connections, longing for completion. Judge Lake asks Brittany to recount what she remembers. Her words paint a picture of brief encounters, childhood moments, faint memories of a man who was present only in scattered pieces of her early life. The courtroom observes her carefully, her voice steady but carrying the quiet ache of 20 years without answers. Mr. Hightower enters, carrying his own uncertainty. His story reveals a complicated past involving multiple relationships, doubts about the pregnancy timeline, and attempts to obtain a paternity test that were never completed. His hesitation over the years created a gap wide enough for Brittany's childhood to slip through. The courtroom senses the complexity. This is not a story of hostility, but of unresolved history. The judge listens to both sides with sensitivity, applying a different kind of legal lens, one rooted less in conflict and more in the emotional architecture of families fractured by uncertainty. This segment of the hearing becomes a reflection on the concept of justice in jurisprudence. Justice is not always about punishing wrongdoing. Sometimes it is about illuminating the truth so that individuals can rebuild their lives with clarity instead of confusion. Brittany explains the longing she carried through adolescence, attempting to find Mr. Hightower through social media searches that never led anywhere. Her voice breaks not from anger, but from a deep desire to understand the missing pieces of her identity. Her experience mirrors countless stories discussed in recovery, where individuals seek closure for wounds that began in childhood, testimonies that resemble those often shared in Celebrate Recovery circles. Mr. Hightower explains that his doubts prevented him from pursuing the truth earlier. He admits he lived a complicated life, but says he sought Brittany recently as part of a spiritual transformation. The courtroom watches as two different emotional journeys converge in front of the judge, a daughter seeking identity and a man seeking closure. In this space, Judge Lake's courtroom transforms again, not a battlefield, not a negotiation table, but a place where truth acts as a bridge between past and present. It is a reminder that paternity is not just legal, it is deeply human. The stories may differ, but the need for answers is universal. The judge prepares the room for another DNA result. The atmosphere grows heavy again, but this time with anticipation shaped by decades, not months. The courtroom holds its breath as the envelope containing Brittany Jackson's DNA results is brought forward. In this moment, the room is silent not because of fear, but because of the depth of what truth represents for a person who has waited a lifetime for it. Judge Lauren Lake understands the emotional gravity that rests inside that single sheet of paper. Years of uncertainty, emotion, and silent questions are condensed into one result. This case mirrors the somber tone often heard in reflective, truth-centered podcasts, moments described in Truth Changes Everything podcast episodes, where long-buried questions rise to the surface and individuals must face outcomes that might rebuild them or shatter them. Here, justice is not punitive. It is clarifying. It is a direct expression of the relationship between law and justice, where the court becomes the only space capable of turning confusion into certainty. Brittany stands with a mixture of hope and fear. She has lived years believing one man to be her father, holding onto childhood memories that shimmer like fragments of a distant, half-forgotten dream. She remembers moments of seeing him, fleeting interactions that she interpreted as paternal. These memories guided her identity, shaped her adolescence, and influenced her understanding of family. But memories, as Judge Lake often reminds litigants, are not evidence. And in paternity matters, evidence must carry the weight. The adverse inference in Evidence Act, though not formally invoked, echoes its spirit in this room. The absence of clarity for decades, the lack of initiative, the fragmented communication, all leave the judge leaning on only one source of truth. The scientific certainty of a DNA test, the same kind that has resolved millions of disputes worldwide, and the same kind that fills DNA test cheating stories and confession-style testimonies across podcasts, courts, and documentaries. As Judge Lake prepares to open the envelope, Brittany's body language reveals that the result matters not just to her future, but to the validation of her entire past. For her, this is not a moment of curiosity. This is the defining moment of identity. Mr. Hightower, meanwhile, stands in a posture shaped by a different emotional weight. He has lived through years of doubt, believing he might be a father but never certain enough to act. His past relationships, complicated connections, and uncertainties created a long shadow. He speaks as a man who has changed spiritually and emotionally over time, hopping to confront a chapter he never closed. His transformation echoes what people often share in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, stories of redemption, regret, and attempts to mend the pieces of a life that once felt disordered. Judge Lake opens the envelope with her characteristic calm. The courtroom remains suspended in anticipation. Scientific truth has no sympathy. It simply reveals what is. When she reads that Mr. Hightower is not Brittany's biological father, the emotional energy collapses instantly. It is not the explosive reaction seen in some hearings. It is quieter, deeper, like a silent internal implosion. Brittany's expression shifts as though the ground beneath her feet has suddenly reconfigured. A truth she believed for 2 decades dissolves in seconds. The courtroom collectively exhales. Even without verbal expression, everyone can see the heartbreak etched across Brittany's face. This was not a dispute over finances, not a custody fight, not a contested breakup. It was the search for biological origin, the foundation of identity. The result, while scientific, cuts emotionally. Judge Lake watches her with compassion, acknowledging that this revelation is life-altering. It mirrors the emotional narratives often found in adoption stories' full episodes, where individuals learn truths about their origin that reshape their self-understanding. The judge reminds her that though this truth is painful, it is not an ending. It is the beginning of a new search, a new journey toward understanding where she truly comes from. The result also leaves Mr. Hightower in a difficult emotional space. The decades of doubt he carried are confirmed, but that confirmation brings no sense of victory. Instead, it offers a bittersweet closure. His attempts to reconnect, shaped by later life spiritual awakening, now meet a boundary he cannot cross. He cannot rewrite the past or fill the void Brittany feels at this moment. All he can do is wish her healing and hope she continues her search. The judge gently emphasizes that truth, even when painful, creates a clearer path forward. It stops individuals from building their lives around assumptions and opens the door for new possibilities. It provides answers, even when those answers hurt. In this moment, the courtroom atmosphere feels like something one might hear dissected in the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, where experts analyze how truth, accountability, and closure intersect in emotionally charged legal matters. Law does not soothe emotional pain, but it stabilizes the foundation that emotional healing can grow from. Brittany struggles with the revelation, expressing frustration over years of searching, failed attempts at connection, and dreams now disrupted. Judge Lake listens carefully, offering guidance driven by compassion but grounded in law. She reinforces that Brittany's right to truth has been honored, and that the road to discovering her biological father is not closed, only redirected. The courtroom is reminded again of the concept of justice in jurisprudence, that justice is not always about a desired outcome, but about clarity, fairness, and truth. In family cases, justice sometimes means letting go of long-held beliefs and starting anew. As the hearing concludes, Judge Lake transitions from the emotional core of the case to the formal closing statements. She acknowledges the courage Brittany displayed in seeking the truth and the emotional strength required to stand in a courtroom and confront a possibility that could reshape her identity. She also acknowledges Mr. Hightower's willingness to participate in the process, knowing the outcome could go in any direction. His presence demonstrates responsibility, even if the truth does not connect him biologically to Brittany. This willingness aligns with principles often explored in Truth Changes Everything discussions, how facing the truth requires humility, honesty, and emotional resilience. When the judge dismisses the case, the courtroom is left in a contemplative quiet. No celebrations, no relief, only reflection. Brittany leaves with new questions and a new direction. Her journey is not complete, but she now possesses a piece of truth she did not have before. It may hurt, but it offers a path forward unmarred by doubt. This type of emotional closure, though painful, aligns with what courts and legal scholars refer to as restorative clarity, a concept often highlighted in family law analysis. The idea is that knowing the truth, even difficult truth, empowers individuals to begin rebuilding without the burden of false assumptions. With Brittany's case concluded, the courtroom resets. New cases, new families, new questions about parenthood, trust, justice, and truth prepare to enter. But for a moment, the room feels heavier, shaped by the emotional complexity of what just unfolded. It is a living reminder that family court does not only determine finances or rights, it determines identity, belonging, and the unspoken emotional architecture of people's lives. Judge Lauren Lake prepares to call the next case, but the stories that just unfolded linger in the space. Both the Mitchell Robinson case and the Jackson Hightower case showcase the range of human experience that enters this courtroom. Disputes fueled by anger, misunderstandings fueled by emotion, and deep-life questions fueled by longing. In one case, a father was confirmed. In the other, a father was ruled out. In both cases, the truth reshaped lives permanently. Both stories demonstrate what many podcasts about evidence and justice discuss regularly: that truth has consequences, legal, emotional, and spiritual. People may fear it, delay it, or fight against it, but once revealed, truth becomes the foundation on which the future must be built. The courtroom of Judge Lauren Lake becomes a living representation of that principle. It is a place where scientific truth overrules rumor, justice overrules accusation, accountability overrules avoidance, and evidence overrules emotion. The Mitchell-Robinson ruling established responsibility and financial support. It clarified paternal identity and created a framework for a child's future. It forced two young adults to face reality and begin the process of co-parenting with structure rather than chaos. The Jackson-Hightower ruling, though heartbreaking, offered emotional clarity. It freed Brittany from decades of uncertainty and opened the path toward discovering her true father. It allowed Mr. Hightower to close a confusing chapter of his life with honesty and humility. Both stories highlight an underlying truth often mentioned in the Divorce Course podcast and legal commentary, that the courtroom is not a place for emotional victory, but a place for factual resolution. It does not heal emotional wounds, but it provides the information needed to begin healing. As the final echoes of the decisions fade, one message becomes clear, a message reinforced across courts, podcasts, testimonies, and legal discussions. Truth doesn't just settle disputes. Truth rebuilds lives. And in Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom, truth always finds its way to the surface.